The CIA thought it was building one of the most secret spy tunnels of the Cold War. Deep under Berlin, agents were digging toward Soviet communication lines. The goal was simple: listen to Moscow without being seen. Above them were soldiers, checkpoints, guards, and Soviet eyes. Below them were wires, dirt, machines, and silence. But there was one problem. Before the tunnel was even finished, the KGB already knew. So why did the KGB let the CIA keep digging? Because stopping the tunnel could expose a secret even bigger than the tunnel itself. To understand that secret, we first need to enter the most watched city of the Cold War. Berlin, the spy capital of the Cold War. Berlin in the 1950s was not just a city. It was a Cold War battlefield without open war. On one side was West Berlin. On the other side was Soviet-controlled East Berlin. The city was divided by politics, fear, and suspicion. At checkpoints, soldiers watched every movement. In offices, informers listened quietly. In hotels, strangers asked too many questions. At train stations, people looked over their shoulders before speaking. A phone call could reveal a military plan. A quiet meeting could expose a spy. One secret file could shift the balance of the Cold War. Most days, the war was invisible. No explosions, no open battle. Just watchers, files, phone calls, and fear. For the CIA, Berlin was a rare chance to get close to Soviet power. For the KGB, Berlin was a front line where every secret mattered. Both sides wanted information. Both sides feared surprise. And in this hidden war, one thing became more powerful than weapons: secrets. The CIA wanted those secrets badly. But the most valuable Soviet secrets were not lying on a desk. They were moving beneath the city. The CIA problem. The CIA knew Berlin was full of information. But reaching that information was dangerous. The offices had eyes on them. The streets had informers. The border had guards. A CIA agent could not simply walk into East Berlin, open a door, and listen to Soviet military plans. So the question became simple: how do you hear a secret conversation without entering the room? The answer was underground. Soviet military messages, phone calls, and important communications were moving through buried cables beneath Berlin. To the Soviets, those cables felt safe. They were not radio signals floating through the air. They were hidden under streets, buildings, and guarded territory. They seemed private. They seemed protected. But for the CIA, those buried lines created an opening. If they could not reach the Soviet officers, maybe they could reach the wires. If they could not enter the buildings, maybe they could go below them. This was not about stealing a document from a desk. This was about stealing conversations from under an enemy city. And that idea led to one of the boldest spy plans of the Cold War. Dig a secret tunnel under Berlin. The tunnel plan. The plan sounded almost impossible. Start from West Berlin. Dig underground toward the Soviet side. Find the right communication cables. Connect listening equipment. Record Soviet conversations day after day. And do all of it without the KGB noticing. This was not a normal spy mission. There was no easy escape, no simple backup plan, no safe way to explain a mistake. If the tunnel went in the wrong direction, the mission could fail. If the digging made too much noise, someone could hear it. If the ground shifted, the tunnel could collapse. If Soviet guards discovered it, the political shock could be huge. But the CIA and British intelligence believed the risk was worth it. They were not looking for small gossip. They wanted real Soviet military communication: orders, movements, warnings, plans. Above ground, Berlin looked tense but ordinary. People walked through streets. Soldiers stood at checkpoints. Cars passed through the city. But underground, a secret operation was about to begin. The CIA was not going to spy from the sky. It was not going to listen from across the border. This time, it was going under Berlin, the fake building, and the dirt problem. To hide the tunnel, the mission needed a cover. Above ground, everything had to look normal. No strange crowds, no obvious digging, no suspicious piles of soil. No sign that one of the boldest intelligence operations of the Cold War was happening below the surface. So the site looked ordinary from the outside. A normal military area, a normal building. Nothing that would make someone stop and stare. But beneath it, workers were digging through the earth. Slowly, carefully, silently. The biggest problem was not only digging, it was hiding the proof of digging. Every pile of soil was evidence. Every truck could raise suspicion. Every unusual movement could make someone ask questions. So the dirt had to disappear inside the cover site. The tunnel had to stay hidden. And the evidence of the tunnel had to stay hidden too. Below the ground, workers kept moving forward. Above the ground, Berlin continued like nothing was happening. Soviet officers made phone calls. Guards watched checkpoints. People crossed streets. And under them all, the tunnel moved closer to its target, step by step, foot by foot. Until finally, the tunnel reached the hidden lines it had been built to find. The tunnel starts listening. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. After months of planning, digging, hiding, and risk, the tunnel reached the Soviet communication lines. The mission was no longer just a drawing on a secret map. It was real. Technicians moved carefully inside the tunnel. Wires were connected. Listening equipment was placed. Headphones went on. Tape reels started turning. And deep beneath Berlin, the hidden tunnel began to listen. Above ground, Soviet officers continued their normal conversations. They spoke through lines they believed were safe. They thought their messages were protected beneath the city. But below them, those voices were being captured. The headphones filled with sound. The tape reels kept spinning. Soviet conversations were flowing into Western hands. Every call could matter. A command, a movement, a warning, a fear, a plan. For the CIA and British intelligence, this looked like a brilliant success. They had built a tunnel under one of the most dangerous cities in the world. They had reached the hidden wires. They had started collecting Soviet communication. But the people inside the operation did not know the most important part of the story. The tunnel was secret from almost everyone, but not from the enemy it was built against. Because while the tunnel was listening to Soviet calls, the KGB already knew it existed. George Blake and the real twist. The KGB did not discover the tunnel by accident. They did not find it because someone heard a strange sound underground. They did not find it because a guard saw something suspicious. They knew because someone on the inside had already told them. His name was George Blake. He looked like part of the British intelligence system. But in secret, he was serving Moscow. While the CIA and British intelligence were planning the tunnel, Blake passed the secret to the Soviets. That means the KGB knew about the operation before the CIA realized its own secret had been betrayed. But this creates the biggest question of the story. If the KGB knew, why did they not stop it immediately? Why allow the digging to continue? Why allow the equipment to be installed? Why allow the tunnel to start recording Soviet communication? The answer was simple and cold. The tunnel was important. But George Blake was more important. If the KGB exposed the tunnel too early, British intelligence might realize there was a mole inside their own system. They might start asking who knew about the tunnel. They might start checking who had access to the plan. And if they followed the trail, they could reach Blake. So the KGB waited. They protected their spy. They allowed the tunnel to continue. And while the CIA listened through the wires, the KGB protected the man who had revealed the whole mission in the first place. This was the real Cold War. Not only walls, Not only soldiers, not only missiles, secrets inside secrets. The CIA thought it had built a hidden tunnel under Berlin. But the KGB had something even more powerful. A hidden man inside British intelligence,